This session actually, it's going to be called Godlike Technology, which does nothing to help with my God complex. But let's talk a bit today about one thing I'm very passionate about, and it is this notion of big data and computing. So I called this talk "Don't Forget Your Cape," and you'll see hopefully why by the end. But here's the situation. The analog world, as we all probably know, is pretty much over. It's done. The means of production today are almost exclusively digital. People like this hipster right here is taking pictures of his food with food spotting, tweeting with Twitter, posting on Instagram, posting on Facebook. He is contributing his life to the digital corpus every single second of every single day. Things like these devices here, this drop cam capturing images from across the world 24/7, this cup which actually detects what you're drinking and posts that to the web, these sensors which you can weave into your clothes and detect your motion across time. All these things are actually painting a picture of the physical world in digital. Same with applications. Look at all these apps. This is a smattering of the 1.5 million applications that exist today that actually connect your intent to something you want to go do. Whether it's getting food delivered to your house, whether it's making your lights come on when you walk in, all these things exist in this digital ether. The notion that we have any analog left in us is pretty much dead. And what that's done is it's actually created this massive amount of data. This year alone, the world will generate 3 zettabytes of data, which means nothing to anybody in here. But what it actually means is all those iPads you have in your laps, imagine 100 billion of those, and that is 3 zettabytes of data. To make it even more concrete, if you stacked them all in a big line, you would consume the volume of 4 Great Walls of China. That's the amount of data we're creating this year alone. It doubled from last year. It's doubling again this year. And what that's actually done for us is enabled search systems to model this very physical analog world that we have in very granular detail. So look at something like this. But this is an IKEA desk. 5 years ago, this desk was represented on the web as a link to an IKEA catalog. Today, this desk is represented by all the different things that make it up. Who designed it, how it got to the particular warehouse, where it's warehoused, the refractory index of the table. So all this information that we've now generated is being reassembled so we can replicate the entire physical world inside a digital proxy. And that's exciting because it actually gives us this ability to have search systems make sense of the real world. They don't just understand the web as a bunch of pages and links, but they literally understand their place on the planet. Every person, every place, everything, how they all relate is now captured somewhere in a search system. In fact, my friends at Google actually, about 2 years ago, they unleashed some of their bots against this corpus of data, and suddenly, with very little direction, the bots began to understand what human faces were without even being told. And from a computer science standpoint, that's a big deal, because now we're saying systems are actually recognizing things without us telling them what they are. In some cases, the systems are outpacing our ability to understand what they're even doing. Don't be afraid. I have lots of friends who are robots. So it looks like intelligence. It's actually not intelligence. It's a thing called machine learning. My buddy here, he about 2 weeks ago talked about in the next 20 years, he thinks machine learning will have a bigger impact on the planet than mobile has. And what is machine learning? Machine learning is why Amazon knows what it is you might buy next. It's how your phone can listen to you and take your voice and transcribe it into text. Basically, it's this ability for machines to take the digital flotsam and jetsam that we create across our daily lives and divine some level of intelligence about the real world from it. It's kind of like how we as kids actually learn. If you think about it, when you were a small child, you would see a round object on the floor. Your parents might point at it. They say a funny word, ball, ball, ball. They say it over and over again. You might see a bounce. You might see kids playing with it. And over time, you begin to take all these inputs that you're hearing in reference to that object and begin to realize that is a ball. Well, machine learning is kind of the same thing. Grossly oversimplified, but kind of the same thing, except instead of 1 or 2 inputs, we now have trillions of inputs about every object on the planet that machines can actually consume. So we built this brain now. There's a brain that actually exists that can do things in the digital world. But it's more than just that. We recognize that humanity is more than just a brain. It's also the senses. And so in the last 3 or 4 years, many innovations have been built to do things like give machines the gift of sight. There's the Amazon Fire, a Kindle Fire phone right now. You can point it at an object. It'll actually figure out what the object is and show you the link in the catalog on Amazon so you can buy it. Very noble cause. Now, we've given it the gift of hearing, like Shazam, an old technology. Shazam, so it can actually hear what's happening and tell you what's going on. It's got the gift of Gab, Cortana, Siri, this ability for us to actually interact with technology in a natural way versus have these caveman and cavewoman English utterances that we're so used to in search. And even the gift of gesture, the ability for us to point at things and touch things and manipulate things in digital space. All these things have begun to be built, and we now have this notion of the digital brain and all of our digital senses now coming together. That's pretty exciting, I think. So here's my contention. We are at the point now where we have all this digital goodness and all this great humanity in the room, and search technologies will be the hinge that bring these things together, making us more powerful than either technology or humanity in isolation. I think about Deep Blue back in the 90s, IBM's computer they built to beat the Grandmaster Garry Kasparov. And it did. Deep Blue did beat Garry Kasparov at chess. But then IBM did a cool thing. They actually brought him back to the lab. And they said, Garry, see if you can work with the computer and make it actually better. And as a result of that, what they built as a result of Garry and the computer working together could be not only any chess grandmaster, which makes sense, but any other supercomputer. So the combination of these two forces together, I think, has profound effects on how we go about living our daily lives. So some profound implications, I think. What are those implications? First of all, search technologies are going to enhance reality. This is a screen grab. Looking back, not the best choice of analog. This is from the Terminator movie, when he was probably should have thought about that better. When he was born and he came and looked around and he was able to identify which of the people in the bar was his right fit so he could get their clothes. But in essence, this is a great science fiction thing. The ability for a robot or a person to just look around and have intelligence spewing about things they see in the real world. You think great science fiction, but it's not. It's actually science fact. This is a screenshot from my Google Glass. I'm looking at an old grist mill here, and as I'm looking at this thing, in my vision up here, I actually see what it is, one tap of the temple, it tells me all about it. So this exists right now. This ability for us to augment and enhance the real world exists right now. Things like this, Estimote. These are small stickers about the size of a postage stamp. You can put them everywhere across your house if you're odd like me, or more likely at a grocery store or at a retail store. And as you walk through these stores now, you can be getting communication to your device or to your goggles or whatnot telling you those shoes would look great with the outfit you bought last week. Or not in my case. Or you need this milk because you're out in the fridge, a classic example. But the ability to augment this, your meat space, our meat space, with data gathered from all these digital brains is happening right now. Things like the Xbox One Connect device. This is a fun one, actually. How many of you use Netflix and you kind of tell it, I like this movie, and Netflix personalizes things? But we want to be better than we are. We say, I love Wings of the Dove. I don't like Wings of the Dove. I like action movies. But I tell them next I want to appear profound. Well, the Xbox Connect can actually not just monitor your movements, but it can look at your pulse rate from sitting across the room. It can look at your blood flow. It can look at how much weight you're putting on this leg right here. So imagine now you're watching a film, and if you wanted to, it doesn't do it today, don't worry, don't go out and tweet this, but if you wanted it to, it could actually detect what films get you excited, what films make you sad, what films make you want to live a better life. And now instead of having to tell Netflix, there we go, this is a 3-star movie, it knows for you. Even things like this is a fun one. This is Mind Meld on the iPad. And this, when you're having a conversation with somebody, in this case I was talking to my girlfriend about San Francisco, where to eat, I mentioned, we were just having a conversation back and forth. We were both talking. I would say things like, we can go to dinner at the ferry building, have you been to the slanted door? And suddenly the system's listening to me. It's augmenting my reality and pulling out things like ferry building, slanted door, and pulling those things as a result of our conversation right there on the screen so I can remember where we want to go next time we're there. So these search technologies are a radical enhancement to our current reality. The second thing I think the search technology stuff can do is, and don't worry, I'm not going to have robot arms and cool eyes, although I'd be pretty stoked, to be honest with you. But these search technologies are going to enhance us. So not just reality, but us. So for example, you look up this thing called Autographer. Now, it's a device that you can't wear unless you're a lot bigger than I am because people will kick your ass. But imagine you do wear this thing, and as you walk around, it's constantly taking photos of what you're seeing. It's documenting where you are, your lat and long, the temperature, your cardinal direction that you're facing, all this information. It's storing it in the cloud just for you. And what happens then is you can use something like Life Browser from Microsoft here, which actually then lets you say things like, who did I meet last week at the train station? And because everything's been captured from Autographer, you can recall all that information with the click of a button. So imagine never having to forget anything, or forgetting a lot of things and having it help you remember what you actually forgot. Even things like this, you're reading a website, and you see something like there are 95 stories on ISIS terror, but chances are you've already read most of those stories. So search technologies, because they understand you so well, understand what you've been doing, they can say, okay, here are 49 you should actually read instead. Or even better, refactor the entire story to show you only things that you are likely to have forgotten or don't know in the first place. Things like the app's Human will be on stage later, and Refresh actually lets you augment your ability to figure out who you're meeting with, who you're seeing in the meeting. So before I even walk into a meeting, I'm able to actually see the background of those who are in the room, where they went to school, what political party they are, what they posted, where they've been, what their photos have been. So before I even walk in that room, I know who I'm talking to. This ability to enhance us is key. I'll skip this one because it's not that exciting. Basically, you can get cables faster. Forget it. It's not important. So why is all this important? It's important for a couple of reasons. A, multitasking. We can't do it. No one can do it. We're just time slicing. So if you have all this augmentation of both reality and yourself, your ability to be more efficient in your life, the ability to do things you actually want to do, are greatly enhanced. If you don't have to think about, should I wear sunscreen today? If you don't have to think about, when do I have to leave to get my daughter at her soccer game? If these systems themselves can augment that for you, you can spend more time doing things you actually want to do. First thing. Second thing is this notion of the eradication of information asymmetry. Very sexy topic for a Saturday morning. But this notion is that the proper functioning of a capitalist system is predicated on all actors in a transaction having somewhat equal access to information. And there's lots of ways that doesn't work. But this notion of radical transparency through all this data can have profound effects on having more people and more places around the world have better access to information and make better decisions, just like our friends in the government. Imagine if we have all this data. Imagine policy decisions around transportation, education, healthcare moves away from the realm of bluster and rhetoric into actual factually based arguments. This will require Lawrence Lessig's work to be successful for it to actually work. But the ability for all this to shape and mold society, I think, is pretty exciting. So who's excited? Everyone excited? Oh, really? Oh, good. I'm glad. I am too. But a lot of folks aren't. A lot of folks are scared by this, and frankly, you should be, because there are a lot of unknowns I haven't talked about: privacy implications, technical implications, the ability to make money off any of this stuff. These are all real problems, and I don't have time today to talk about the solutions. But I have a book coming out in a month, so you can read it then. But I think there is a certain magic to all this technology. There is a godlike magic to this technology, and we are accelerating down the road for us to take advantage of this in ways we never thought possible. And at the end of all of this, I think we'll all be very excited to get our cape. That's it. Thanks very much.